All right, folks. Last call. No, I'm just kidding. Not last call, but it got your attention. So feel free to grab a seat. We are going to get started here. Well, thank you all for joining us. We sincerely appreciate it. My name is Jonathan Singer. I'm a Senior Director of Policy Programs here with the Boulder Chamber. We are thrilled to have you all join us for the 2023 College of Political Knowledge. Got a small woo-hoo. We'll see after everyone says how everyone feels afterwards. Special thanks to all of our presenters, but this extra special thanks to council member friend who is feeling under the weather, but has decided not to share her germs with us, but still join us by Zoom. So thank you for being the disembodied head with the knowledge. With that being said, I'll also share my thanks with our team here. Our events team has done a phenomenal job. If you haven't stopped by to say hi to Kathleen, doing a great job in the back. Our president, CEO, John Taylor, and of course, our program policy specialist, Devin Edgley, for giving our speakers here so you could get the knowledge that we all are craving. With that being said, this would also not be possible without our sponsors. And so our wonderful community sponsor here today is Elevations Credit Union. I would like to invite Dennis Paul from Elevations to come share a few words before we get. Come on down.
Jonathan, thanks a ton. Appreciate your leadership on the governmental affairs front. It was a real coup to get Jonathan on our staff, so much. Yeah, so this is my second event of the day. I was actually over at Via Mobility. They were celebrating a big anniversary, and they're an organization that is near and dear to our hearts at Elevations. And they launched in 1979 with some buses, and that was the same year that Eric Lombardi launched EcoCycle, and they had some green buses as well. And if that weren't enough, Richard Polk with the pedestrian shop was selling his Earth shoes out of a green bus, and they all did this in the parking lot at Ideal Market. So that I grew up in that neighborhood, and it just was kind of ironic to think about that. Such a storied history these organizations bring to our community. We're very blessed at Elevations. We're a small financial cooperative, but we kind of hit above our weight. We bank 1 out of every 2 households in Boulder, Boulder proper, and 1 out of every 3 in Boulder County. And that's the result of 71 years of commitment. We're very blessed that our board of directors understands that the community built our organization. The community is the reason for our success, and they understand the importance of supporting the community. We're a cooperative. We're only as strong as our weakest member, and of course, our weakest members are only as strong as the communities they live in. So it's very important to us to sponsor events of this nature and all sorts of different organizations along Colorado's Front Range. So with that, Jonathan, thank you. I was going to say, this is one place I can say I look around this room and I see nothing but potential. This is our future right here. And one thing that we want to learn tonight from our panelists is how do we build the emotional and mental fortitude to run for office in this community? That's not an easy thing to do. So that's really the hurdle that you'll have to get over when you become elected officials, is being able to manage the constituencies we have in Boulder. I always like to say, everybody's got an opinion, and in Boulder we have 7. So as long as you agree with them, you're in good shape. Anyway, thank you, John. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks for Elevations. All right, so I'm going to run through the quick agenda before we jump ahead here. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to hear from our city staff first, and they're going to talk about all the nuts and bolts about what it takes to run for office. I can't tell you how many times somebody has thought about running for office, and then they realize they don't meet the residency requirements. They don't meet the age requirements. There are these simple but important things and milestones. So we're going to hear from them first. Following that, we'll hear from council members Benjamin and Friend. about what it takes to run a successful campaign in terms of a candidate, but some of you might be interested on specific issues, and issues campaigns can have an even larger impact in many ways. And then last but not least, we'll be hearing from the media about what the process looks like if we're interacting with the media. So special thanks to our friends in the media. And then finally, assuming you run and win, what's it really like? So stick around for the end because you're gonna get the lowdown on that as well. So with that, we have a lavalier mic over here. I want to introduce our first three presenters. We have Alicia Johnson, our city clerk from the city of Boulder, John Morse, our city elections division manager, and Luis Toro from the city attorney's office. So each of you feel free to take it away, and we'll start. The mic should be on. Feel free to begin when ready, but thank you all three of you for joining us today.
All right, do I talk?
Just hold it up to you like an actual mic, you're fine. We can untangle that mess.
I can be kind of clumsy, John.
Well, the political process is messy.
All right, everyone, good evening, and it's so nice to see everybody here. I'm Alicia Johnson, as my wonderful nameplate says, and I serve you as the city clerk for Boulder. So again, thank you for coming. And Jonathan was a hard act to follow. So with Devin, she's got him up there. What we're gonna cover tonight, and again, we have John and Luis here. But what we're gonna try to cover tonight is just like John said, the basic information. Next slide, please, Devin. And we just want to make sure you know who your contact information is off the bat. Again, me and John manage the elections, and we would be the people that you would probably get tired of seeing for those few weeks. Okay, because we have lots of questions and forms that are required and things to fill out. So we are your primary contacts. Next slide, please. All right, so what are you required to be, or what is your qualifications to run for city council or mayor? Because this year, we'll have a slide and give you some information about that. This is our first year of electing our mayor through ranked choice voting.
I think people had better luck yesterday, they actually put it on there. Yeah, I think it just top right into it, I think that.
Okay, great. Is that, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is our first year for the election of our mayor by you. And that will take place due to a ballot measure that was presented back in 2020. And so this not only covers how you would run for city council, but also the same qualifications or the same guidelines for mayor. To become a candidate for council, you'll need to sign first and foremost a nomination petition from the city of Boulder, of course, and that's in reference to our charter. And then that particular form certifies that you are a registered elector, because that is the #1 requirement. The second requirement will be that you are at least 21 years of age, because we have had some young people try to run, but of course they couldn't because of that age factor. And the last thing that we want to point out is you have been a resident of the city of Boulder for 1 full year. That is one of the requirements that we tend to have a little bit of complications with as well. And that is immediately starting that January, from January to January. That's a January to January thing. All right, and so you are not eligible if you have previously been elected to 3 or more terms of that office.
Then except if you're running for mayor, you can have served already 3 terms, and then you're limited to 4 years as mayor. It didn't fit on the slide. That's the mayor.
Did anybody have any questions about that? Okay, I'm pretty lighthearted, so if you want to jump in there with questions, please feel free to. All right, next slide, please. We do want to point out that there are changes coming in our Boulder election process. And the first change, of course, is the 2023 November election. The city of Boulder will conduct again ranked choice voting for its mayor. And this is again the first time. So we're kind of excited and kind of scared. All right, this is a new process. But ranked choice will take effect if only if there are 3 or more candidates. If there are only 2 candidates for mayor, we'll proceed with the normal election process. All right, and then the second change we want to note is starting in 2026, due to a ballot initiative from last year, the city of Boulder will transition to even year elections. Now, this will change term limits and those, for this year and for 2025 candidates. And we note that in order to transition to those even year elections, in the 2023 election, the term limit for both the mayor and the city council members elected will be 3 years. Okay, so 2023 will go to 2026, and then we'll have another election, and then that term will go from 2026 on, okay? So after that, the mayor term will be 2 years after 2026, and candidates elected in 2025 will be for a 3-year term. And that will cycle us all back to 2028. Is that confusing?
Yes.
There will be a quiz later.
Okay, there'll be a quiz later, but then there's also questions if you want to ask questions. In order for us to cycle to even year elections, we had to shorten some terms and lengthen the mayor's term this year and shorten the council member terms. And all the council member terms going forward, because we elect the mayor, will be 4 years after we get to our even year cycle. Okay, that's more confusing. All right, next slide, David. How do I certify as a candidate? So that process begins on Tuesday, August the 8th, and runs through Monday, the August 28th of 2023. Now, the first step is to sign the candidate's consent on the nomination petition. You'll learn that as you go, because there's like a 3-part process. And then you're required to get a minimum of 25, no more than 35 signatures. And that is of only City of Boulder registered elected voters. Okay, because some people go outside of Boulder, maybe in unincorporated Boulder County. We can't count those as valid electors of the City of Boulder. They have to be within the city limits. We will then validate the voter registration of those signers, and we do that pretty quickly, and then we'll get that certificate to you that allows you to actually be verified to run as a candidate for the November 7th ballot. Okay, next one, please. Now that you're certified, within 3 days of being certified, then you get to hit the ground running. You request your username and password to access your voter system by sending an email to the city clerk's office email, as we see on the screen, and with the name of your committee and the email you set up for that committee. Then you file your statement of organization for official candidate committee, because that is a requirement, because if you are a candidate, you have a committee that's actually helping you with your campaign. Next, you'll file your financial interest disclosure by September 12th. And then the next step is the early September date of Channel 8 filming for candidate positions, which tends to be a little fun because you get to present yourself and have your own little, plug for your campaign, and we arranged to have you do that. And then the last step we want to just point out is then you want to record your name for election equipment with the Boulder County elections. All right, next slide. 2023 guidelines. Now, we will provide each candidate with an electronic copy of the guidelines, but they're already available on the website noted here on the slide in case you want to go and take a look and you may have some additional questions. But we will provide you with your certification petition, a copy of that electronically. Okay? Now, yes, sir.
One bullet at the bottom of the 2 slides ago, it records your name for election equipment. What is that? Is that the name you choose to have on the ballot? Is that?
That's exactly correct, because some people may have I'm gonna use Councilmember Benjamin as an example, because he's sitting here and he's so nice, he does it fine. Like suppose he wanted to have Matthew and then in quotations, Matt Benjamin.
Gotcha.
That's how we want to let the county know how we want to present your name on the ballot. And then you also probably want to have that on your petition, just to have that referenced. Okay?
It was actually Benjamin.
I was gonna say that, but when it starts to. All right, is there any questions about those qualifications and next steps at this point? All right, I'm gonna turn it over to John. He's gonna explain to you about campaign finance and contributions. He manages the meeting.
All right, everyone. Thanks, Alicia. Thanks for presenting here tonight. I'm John Morse, the elections administrator for the city. I'll be your first point of contact for all things campaign finance. So the first slide we have here, and a big thing to know, is that when you run for office, you're going to be limited to $100 contributions from the public. And that's for monetary, in kind, which is like services, or other type of items, and loans. So there's a $100 limit there. Next slide. So in the late 90s, the city of Boulder adopted matching funds as part of their campaign finance. It's an interesting thing we do and offer to our candidates. It's optional if they want to do it, where the city will match up to a certain amount to help finance your campaign. Now, there are some parameters when you do agree to taking matching funds. So the first point there is that if you do receive matching funds, your campaign is going to have a limit of $22,610 for all your expenditures. One thing to note too, every year we update our figures based on the consumer price index and inflation. So it goes up slightly each year. The second point to note is that there is a period where you have to raise so much contribution before you can start to receive matching funds. So the mark to hit in order to begin receiving matching funds is 2,261. As for the third bullet there, we do limit how much you yourself can contribute to your campaign if you choose to receive matching funds. And we do have a max there for this upcoming year of 4,522. And then the fourth bullet there, we will match 50% of your campaign. So I mentioned the limit of 22,610 is your top, and then we'll match half of that at 11,305. And as for the last bullet there, you will only accept contributions from natural persons. So you will have to document on your campaign finance reports the person who donated and their address. Which leads into the next slide. As for anonymous contributions, official candidate committees and unofficial candidate committees cannot take anonymous contributions. Typically how we handle things is we would recommend you donate that money to a charity of your choice if you do receive it.
What's an unofficial candidate committee?
An unofficial candidate committee is basically a committee that endorses multiple candidates. Typically that's how it's gone together. Yeah, like the Sierra Club or.
Could you give me a for instance?
You were on one, weren't you, Matt?
I was official candidate. So, an unofficial, so for like ballot measures, for instance, like, or candidates, like the Sierra Club. They're not themselves running a ballot measure, and they themselves are not candidates, but they form a group that then campaigns on behalf and supports candidates. They would be an unofficial candidate committee. In that capacity. And there's other civic groups in our community that operate in the same fashion, that they want to support a particular set of candidates, or they are not running a particular ballot measure, but want to support or oppose a ballot measure, and they can register as a committee as long as they meet certain thresholds or triggers, and therefore they can do what's considered express advocacy to advocate for the support or opposition of a particular ballot measure or set of
So
candidates.
anybody that puts money towards a campaign in any way has to be somehow registered, either officially or unofficially? No?
Well, put towards like a campaign, I mean, like
No,
contributed.
One of these groups. So if I'm part of an unofficial group, I have to register as an unofficial group in order to put money towards some political cause.
I will defer to Louise, but there are certain triggers that you have to meet for that, but I'll let Louise specify that.
Yeah, the key is for unofficial candidate committees is that you're collecting contributions. So if you're collecting contributions, then, and you're not hoarding, this is independent of the candidate, then that's an unofficial candidate committee. But if you're acting solely on your own and you want to spend money, there's a dollar threshold, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but you can spend up to a certain amount without disclosing, but if you cross that threshold, then you have to file an independent expenditure disclosure. I think that may be what your question is getting at.
All right, so why don't you finish with the presentation? We've got time for questions, and then we'll go, and then feel free to queue up at the microphone since we're making sure this is recorded for posterity's sake. So feel free to continue, John, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, we'll continue on there. Thanks, Matt, for that answer. So a few more things about disclosure. When you're part of an official candidate committee, your main words you're gonna have to remember are paid for by. That's your main disclosure on all your advertisements and marketing. And then as for like video and written ads, we have a few codes cited there that kind of lay out the parameters on what we're looking for or what you need to be disclosing on that. So as for like the written ad, you want to have a font similar to Arial, and then it has to be no more than a minimum 10 point. As for video ads, we have like the requirements of how long you need to have a disclosure up. So for example, if it's a 30-second video, you have to have the disclosure up for 5 seconds. If it's longer than 30 seconds, we need a 10-second disclosure. And all that's laid out in our code there. And again, in the election guidelines, highly recommend looking through those for answers. And then the last point here is a solicitation for candidates. You'll have to state if it's authorized or not authorized by the candidate or candidate.
All right, next we want to cover, what are the terms of office and how do I get paid? Because our council members are paid. So in 2023, there will be 5 open seats, and that is 4 council members and 1 mayoral seat. Now, the top 4 candidates receiving the most votes receive the 3-year terms, as said earlier, because of us trying to cycle into even year elections. And then the elected candidate for mayor will also receive a 3-year term. Now, council members receive compensation of $239.40 per meeting, not to exceed 52 meetings per year. That includes your study sessions and special meetings, okay? And they are eligible also for city medical benefits. So you've been elected, now what? Therapy, no, just joking. A lot of work it is. So we go through an onboarding and orientation, which is pretty detailed. We also have a mock council meeting, and we bring you up to speed and have all the directors come in and answer any questions you may have about the budget process or land use or call-ups and things like that. And we do have a Thursday, December 7th, first meeting of the new council day. Now that is when the transition takes place, right? On that day, we have the 10 a.m. swearing in. You can welcome to bring your family and take pictures and whatnot. And then we also take your official council pictures. That will be your headshots for the website and your group photo. And then we also have a council lunch, and that's scheduled with the incoming and the outgoing council members. So just in case you have some personal questions, or you want to have that, down and dirty talk and ask those questions that make you comfortable outside of a formal environment. And then at 6 p.m., we have our first official meeting. Now, at the 10 o'clock in the morning swearing in, we do, once the council members are sworn in, they take their seat. And then the mayor will actually continue the meeting till 6 o'clock that evening. So it's not 2 meetings, it's actually 1 meeting that started at 10 o'clock. We have the swearing in, and then we leave, go take your pictures, have lunch, and then you come back at 6 and have the official meeting. Okay? So it's a pretty long day, but it's a fun day. We tend to have a good time that day. Now, we do also have an annual retreat every year, normally in January, and it's normally scheduled for Friday afternoons and Saturday all day, because it's actually a working session. And at that retreat, council sets their priorities for the staff. And they kind of talk it through, hash it through, and they actually, each one of them has their own list, and they sort of, like I said, work through it, and it becomes a list for work for us to do, and we happily do it. Next, we want to just mention there is a business meetings are generally the 1st and 3rd Tuesday. Those are your actual action meetings. And then we have, Thursdays. Thank you. I didn't either. It was the 1st and 3rd Thursdays because we did just transition to Thursdays last year. So my apologies. 1st and 3rd Thursdays are your action business meetings, and that's when you take formal action. And then your study sessions, which are considered work sessions, where you get information and interact with staff about specific topics, are on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays. And then there's generally no meeting on the 5th Thursday of the month. when there is a fifth Thursday in that month.
It's also generally no meetings on the fifth Tuesday, so.
Well, we can fix that.
No, I love for council to go back to Tuesdays, but that's my own. All right, so all the good events happen on Thursdays, and now we've gotta go to all the good events plus council. Well, no, and that's the thing, it's like I don't have to choose. It's Sophie's choice for election notes. All right, so if there are questions from the audience, we do have a microphone set up, right there. Feel free to queue up if you have questions. This is, you know, not your last chance, but your first chance to really hear about the nuts and bolts of this. So any questions for our panel on this?
And one question, the donations, are those just from people, city of Boulder or from wherever?
Where?
Within the US or outside? Like,
You don't have a ban on international contributions. In practice, nobody has.
okay.
Well, yeah, if anyone with the last name of Putin tries to donate, you probably just want to give that money to a charity at that point. So, other questions?
Yeah, you mentioned on the loans, it was $100 limit as well. I would imagine you incur expenses before August 9th when you can actually do fundraising. Is that a loan or how does that work?
Okay, that's why we have that early disclosure. You can go ahead and spend money and get contributions before your first disclosure, and the whole point, because some people want to spend money before. But it's not, a loan is what it sounds like. It's a loan to your campaign that you expect to get paid back.
Okay, great.
But you also want to make sure you keep documentation, because you know, lots going on, so make sure you keep the documentation. So when you get ready to sit down and fill out your disclosure form, you'll have it all available.
Great questions. Other questions? Feel free to jump up. This is important stuff.
Yeah, the in-kind, so that's $100 in kind. Who sets the like hourly rate? Is that minimum wage or what? How does that work?
It's what's a fair market value of the time, so.
Okay.
So if it's normally $25 an hour, then that's what it is, but there's an exception that if you have legal or accounting services for the purpose of complying with with our laws, that's not subject to the limit, and also just regular volunteer time is fair game. You could volunteer your own time, but so it's only considered as kind of contribution, like if you have a web designer.
I see, so if you actually pay them.
Or if they normally would get paid for doing what they're doing, like designing a website, and they do it for free, that's an in-kind contribution.
Okay, I understand. Except for an accountant.
Right, accounting and legal services for the purpose of complying with our laws you can get that for free and it doesn't count as an in-kind contribution.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Just as a clarification, also, you know, if you've got friends who are knocking on doors or making phone calls, that is not an in-kind contribution. That's just regular volunteer hours. Their reward will be in heaven, not in their bank accounts.
But unlimited volunteer time.
And it's normally, if there was normally be a charge and they're donating it to your campaign, then that's what the in-kind is. If someone else would have paid for that service. But they decided to donate it to you.
Or like a free room, like if you get a room for free, normally if you rent it out, it would be the cost of what the rent charge would normally be.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, so if you want to rent this room for your victory party, $1,000, no. So with that being said, the reason I wanted to get all the questions in first is I know some of our city staff have other city business they may need to attend to before the end of this event, so I wanted to make sure those questions got out there first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call a little bit of an audible. I do want council members Benjamin and Friend to tell us a little bit about. I want to make sure this was the last slide, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to let council members Benjamin and Friend. If each of you can talk for about 3-4 minutes each about what it's like to run a successful campaign. And then what we'll do is we'll reserve your questions for the end, because I know we have you doing a wrap up at the end for both of you. So, why don't we go in the order that I put your names here? So we'll go in alphabetical order with, Councilmember Benjamin, who has some experience both on the issue side as well as the candidate side. So take it away.
Can I call an audible and defer to my colleague on there only because of just, I can mention stuff about campaign on both ballot and candidate. And so I'll let maybe Rachel and I can pick up the pieces of which maybe she misses, but she's pretty thorough, so I doubt it.
All right, well, I'm picking up the pieces is a big part of politics as well. So, all right, so Councilmember Friend, we'll make sure that the mics are loud enough and we'll take it away.
Thanks, Jonathan. That was a very diplomatic way, Matt, of saying that I don't know much about the issues campaign. So thank you for that pass off. Hi, everyone. Thanks again to Jonathan and the chamber and to Dennis and Elevations. This is such a cool event, and I hope that candidates get everything they need out of it. And thanks to city staff for leaving too. I'm Rachel Friend. I'm a city council member wrapping up a 4-year term here in 2023. I was elected in 2019. I truly hate Zoom, so I am very sorry not to be there with you all. And love seeing all of your happy faces. And I loved campaigning, so it's delightful for me to be here talking to y'all about it. And there's no way I can cover the bases of everything that you would need to do, I think, in a campaign in 3.5 minutes. So I would invite anyone interested to email me separately if you'd like to know sort of what my kitchen cabinet meetings covered and sort of what I was doing by April or July, that kind of thing. Happy to chat with anyone who's thinking about running. So I'm just going to share 3 broad things that are top of mind for me in answering this question, which again is how to run a successful campaign. And it may seem a little obvious, but I would encourage people to first define what is success for you. For me, and I think Matt would agree, you can certainly define success as joy of the endeavor itself. So for me, campaigning felt a lot like sort of law school, grad school meets competitive soccer or a sport. It was sort of like drinking from a fire hose and like great camaraderie. And so if you're someone who can define success as, absorbing a ton of knowledge, getting way outside your comfort zone, raising awareness on some issues that you care about, and meeting hundreds of delightful people, then your campaign, I think, can be a success by like mid-September. That's how I felt about it. And I would encourage you all to consider defining success as not dependent on the outcome of endorsements, some of which will certainly break your heart because they can feel political or stacked. They don't all go your way, or the outcome of the vote, which you have no control over, but you do have control over sort of the type of campaign you run and whether you want to view it as exhilarating or not. So I found it exhilarating. It's fast paced. It is stressful, but it can be joyful. So I think it's good to sort of map out your plan in advance. I had a calendar pretty well set by about July. Flexibility is going to be required, but then just kind of try to enjoy the ride and enjoy the journey for its own sake. So that's my first point. Second one would be to thine own self be true, to quote the Bard. I really know why are you running, and then just be authentic. So I would encourage you not to sell your soul to get to where I am. It's not that fun. It doesn't pay well. Like you want to, be able to go to sleep knowing that you have been authentic, and you don't want to tell, I think Shay and Gary are there. You don't want to tell them or anyone in the press or any potential endorsers or your neighbors or your friends something that you think they want to hear as part of your campaign. Just be honest and you will, I think, sleep well at night. Also to know that it's really okay to be imperfect on the campaign trail. Like you're guaranteed to bomb at some point, and probably at multiple points. Like by October, you're showing up with your shirt inside out, and you've put something on Twitter that didn't land well or whatever. I remember just bombing at the Raucous Caucus. And a year later, after I'd been serving for quite a while, somebody told me that they voted for me because they liked the way I handled bombing. They were like, I thought you did a pretty good job, like just knowing that you didn't answer that well and just authentically saying that. So, just be yourself on the campaign trail and do the best you can. And just, you're gonna be so busy that you don't have to beat yourself up over the things that go wrong. And then also just run it in a way that works for you. So if you don't like public speaking, you can use note cards. If you like to sing, like I think there's a candidate there who was singing on the campaign trail sometimes when I was on, sing like that's fine. You do you, figure out what you like to do, delegate the things that you don't like to do, and have fun with it. Do I still have any time left, Jonathan? I have a.
30 seconds. You're not bombing, I promise. 30 seconds.
Okay, well, so in 30 seconds, I can't get through my whole third point, but I would say by now you want to be kind of knowing what your top 3 issues are, starting to figure out who are your people, who's your team, pull them together. You know, you should be doing pre-messaging now. I met Matt Benjamin at a cafe, and I was meeting so many people at that cafe, just trying to meet sort of the people who were involved in Boulder politics, that the barista came up and asked me after I met Matt, "Are you speed dating?" And I was not. I was just trying to meet a lot of people. So it's a good time to get out there. Happy to share more of sort of what you can be doing in the run up. And with that, I'm sure I've gone over my 4. So over to Matt.
All right, take it away, Matt. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel. That was quite thorough. I'll add a few pieces and then I'll maybe touch on a little bit of some ballot measure stuff. For one, the Boulder election book is your Bible. It is, carry it with you if they offer still printed, have it always. And the most important thing is ask permission, not forgiveness. If you have a doubt, reach out to John, reach out to Alicia, ask permission, not forgiveness. It will bite you in the rear if you ask forgiveness. It's just much easier to ask when in doubt. They're good at responding, they'll get back to you quick, and it'll be a lot more painless than you trying to sift through and sort through the Boulder revised code for you to interpret. They'll just have an answer for you. So I think that's something that a lot of people stress over. Structure, campaign manager, treasurer, web, social, graphics. Those are, if you got someone who's skilled in all of those areas, then you've got the core structure to be a successful campaign. If you're running, whether it's the ballot measure or you're running as a candidate, you've got to pound the pavement. You've got to get out there. And if you're stuck doing the administrative work, you're not interacting with the electorate. So make sure that you can divide and conquer and have that support team available to you. As a candidate, be positive. Negative campaigns die a very quick death in this community. So do not go negative, be positive. And if you can hold people and issues to account, but still be positive. This community didn't get where it is by negativity. So let's keep that train alive. And then I'd say avoid the echo chamber. Seek those that may disagree with you, even though you may be walking into a lion's den. You gain respect, but you also gain an understanding of the why they may oppose your issue or the issues you care about as a candidate. And that why is fundamental to be able to build trust with people in the community that otherwise may disagree with you on a particular subject. And it's really critical you seek that out intentionally, because it's easy to fall into those that agree with you and just stay in the echo chamber. So really be intentional with that. And it's okay not to know the answer. You're gonna get grilled by Shay and Gary and others, you're gonna get grilled, no doubt. They're trying to test how much you know, but not in a malicious way. They just want to know. And they will sniff out BS in a heartbeat. So just admit that you don't know the answer and that you're gonna that who you are and what's in your fibers to do the work, to do the research. Not everyone comes into council knowing everything. They may hold an incumbent to a different standard than someone who's never run. That's up to them. But just be honest and just admit you don't know something, because authenticity is key. Last couple of pieces I point out for ballot measure folks: when you're out collecting signatures, give yourself a 10 or 20% buffer over the allotted amount. There will be attrition on the signatures you get. The other thing is a soft verification in the field. While your team is out collecting signatures, have them do a soft verification. What I mean by that is, if someone signs your petition and says, "Oh, I live in Louisville," that doesn't work. So have a soft verify, and then you can either scrub that out or just have that conversation before they're signing. "Oh, hey, where are you from?" Have that dialogue, because the last thing you want to do is burn half your petition because you've got people signing it that simply don't live here. And then that works against your number. And so just have that soft vetting is really, really impactful. And then similarly, like candidates, do your opposition research, know the why people oppose your thing. It's really important to be able to connect with people in that capacity versus just focus on those that are the yes. So those are the things I touch on.
Excellent. Well, no, it's hard to summarize a campaign in 3 minutes, especially when you spend all that blood, sweat, and tears. But speaking of tears, let's go to our media. So we've got Shay Castle, a longtime reporter here in Boulder, and Garrett Garrison, our editor from the Boulder Daily Camera as well. So once again, for each of you, let's take 3 to 4 minutes, and then we'll open it up to questions from the media, and then we'll be wrapping it up with council members Brandon Benjamin. So This is how they make decisions on who they endorse as well, so. It's how it's done. All right, Shay, take it away.
So yes, Shay Castle Boulder Beat. The Boulder Beat does not do endorsements. The Daily Camera does endorsements, the Boulder Weekly does endorsements. We're all gonna make you sit down with us and interview. I do interviews separate, and they're usually quite lengthy, 1 to 3 hours. You do not get points for being the longest. You might get some for being the shortest. We do not endorse at the Boulder Beat. What I do is, I do a little rundown of like, here's the narrative of this person and why they're running and who they are. Here are some pros and cons, why you might want to vote for them, why you might not want to vote for them. I do find something positive about every candidate. Sometimes it's very difficult. But there is something about everyone that is worthwhile. And I try to put myself in the mind of my readers. They're number one for me. My readers are intelligent, they're engaged, they're thoughtful, and they all have different values. Everyone has a different value. So I try to write in a way that you can read based on your values and know, yes, I like this, yes, I don't, even though I do kind of put my own value in there, like, but just by dint of saying like, here's positive and here's negative, that's a value judgment, right? But I try to leave it open enough that anyone can read it and take what they want from it. And then I do your take on the issues. Please know your issues before you talk to me. I am a little bit nicer than I've been in past years. I have softened with age, but I'm very rigorous in my interviews. They're the most comprehensive and detailed in the city during election time, so you need to be prepared. At the same time, don't put me off until August. Like, please, that won't win you any points either. I'm actually starting interviews this month. That's how long I take to do my election coverage. It's incredibly comprehensive. So if you want to schedule with me, my schedule's open now. So, I think that's all I have to say about my particular process. Other than that, it's a lot. You have to sit down with the camera, you have to sit down with the weekly. Boulder Reporting Lab will probably do something as well. I'm not sure what. I always offer my content to everyone for free. They always turn it down, but it is a lot. So I don't have any advice on maybe who to go to first or anything, but just know that you're gonna have to do this multiple times. And then there's the endorsements from all the different groups, Sierra Club and all the political groups. So it's a lot of time. But you have to do it. And you can refuse an interview with the Beat or with any of the outlets. You obviously don't have to. I will write about you anyway. And it will not probably be good. Like, that will count against you. I say this all the time, but journalism is like democracy. It's gonna happen with or without you, but it's so much better if you participate. So please keep that in mind. I have had one person decline an interview. And I still found something good to say about them, but I would recommend going back to Boulder Beat and reading the past few cycles of interviews that I've done. Don't be scared once you read them. They are incredibly tough, but I'm a human just like you, and I get better at my job every day. So my interviews this year are going to be even better than for the past 2 years. So that's what I have to say.
I mean, to be fair, there's something good to say about the candidate who refused the shortest interview. So. All right, Gary, feel free to take it away.
Thank you, that was excellent. So yeah, 2 things real quick. I'm gonna try and hit 2 points. I'm the opinion editor at the Camera, so our opinion section and our news section are separate. So we do the opinion section of the paper, which is me, our publisher, and then 2 of our senior editors. We do endorsements, so that process is not, unfortunately, a 3-hour interview, which would be so much more thorough and wonderful, but we have 4 people to try and get into a room in addition to each candidate, so sometimes we try and do like 30 minutes per person, but sometimes things dictate or go a little longer, a little shorter, but the thing that I would stress for our endorsement process is why you have a narrative, have something you want to tell us, have your 3 issues nailed down that are top of mind for you, and be able to express that to us. be able to show us your passion, be able to show us why you are the person to be taking these things on. I think that really will come through when you're talking to us. We will have a list of questions also that we will ask to everyone, but you know, if you can take those things that matter to you, that'll go a long way for us. So we do talk to every candidate who will talk to us, and then, you know, we come together and make our decisions on endorsements. So it's a pretty straightforward process. The thing that I will say, which this is kind of silly, but have a way that we can get in touch with you. Last year, when I was trying to do endorsements for some statewide candidates, I literally could not figure out how to get in touch with them. I was on their websites, I was calling people, I was emailing people. They didn't have like a media email or press email or anything like that. And some people we didn't have a chance to talk to because I literally could not ever get a hold of them. So have something on your website or somewhere, respond to Twitter messages, whatever it may be, but be available to talk to us, have an open line of communication. That is super helpful. So we do also have, you are allowed to write one guest opinion. You cannot electioneer in that guest opinion, so you can talk about your issues, talk about what's important to you. You know, again, same sort of thing, have that narrative. Why you? Why are you the person to tackle these issues? Letters to the editor, this is really contentious, but no form letters. If you can, you know, get people excited to write something that is unique to why they want to support you, that's gonna go a lot further than someone reading the same A, B, and C is why I like this candidate, A, B, and C, A, B, and C, A, B, and C. That gets really old really fast, right? So if you can encourage people to kind of bring a personal anecdote or something like that, that'll go a long way. And not every letter is going to be published, but I just have to say that we get way too many. We have paper that we have to think about. So the last thing real quick, the news side, which I'm not a part of, but I've reached out to our news folks to ask them if they wanted to pass anything along to you guys. We do our questionnaire, our candidate questionnaire, similar sort of thing, be able to have something where people can get in touch with you, right? So that they can get these questions to you. Our reporters will be assigned a lot of candidates, so be patient with them. They are, they're people, right? So they're doing the best that they can. Sometimes there's a lot of people to be juggling, but if you don't respond to our questionnaire, everybody else does and you don't, it's the same sort of thing. Like, it's just gonna be an empty space. So think about that. And the last thing that I wanna say is, and this was passed along from the news folks, have a nice picture. We have to, we will publish your picture, with, whether it's with the letter to the editor or with the questionnaire, have a nice picture for us, like a mug shot and then a portrait that we can use. That goes a long way if people can see you in a good light, right? So.
Not an actual mug shot.
No, yeah, what we call a mug shot, which is just your face. It doesn't, it might help some people, but no, yeah, but the nice pictures go a long way. It's very, very helpful. So I think that's the last thing that I wanted to hit on those.
Yeah, if your campaign slogan is not guilty, maybe needs that. So, no, great insight. So let's go, let's focus are there any questions for our media folks? Feel free to walk up to the microphone so everyone can hear you. And let us know if you want to direct it forward or if you want to direct it.
Actually, kind of everybody, but just in terms of timing, if we declare in August, you're saying you could interview as of now. Are we able to disclose that we're running for city council and start doing a website and all that now, or do we have to wait till August to do that?
I think, well, we had that situation last year, so we can't control what you put out there.
Okay.
If you wanna start talking to people and making sure it's known, you're welcome to do that. But until you're an official candidate, that is what changes perspective,
Okay.
right? So again, you can start talking to people, making it known, but you're not officially running until you're officially running.
Right, and so like Matt, when did you have your website?
I had my website up pretty early, but I was clear on my website that I'm considering a run for council.
Got it.
So I kind of had a soft launch of the website, more to brute force test it, so that when it was official,
Yeah.
you know, it didn't break and wasn't full of misspellings and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is just to be clear that you are not an official candidate for city council, that you are considering to run, or you're interested in running. If you give those sort of disclaimer words, that covers you in the eyes of making sure that you haven't, you know, certified in the eyes of the city. So just be clear in that way, and that
Great.
helps.
And just to clarify, I start interviewing in April. I think my earliest interview was Junie Joseph. I think she was like April 20th for the year she ran or something in there. But I don't publish anything until the first week of October, so, and I do follow up. Junie Joseph's positions evolved quite a bit over her campaign run, so I'm pretty diligent in following up, but just a plug, because I hate fitting them all in 1 month. That will make me grumpy.
Which is what we do, and it's very difficult, so it's, yeah, it's a headache for me.
Your headaches, more words. All right, any other questions for especially for immediate before we go to the last part? All right, well, let's jump to, we're now ahead of schedule officially. So, we put this under the heading of how I got elected and what every candidate needs to know about getting the job. I should really say, really about having the job as well. You know, I don't know if there's such a thing as a typical day, but if you can walk us through what a typical, maybe a typical week or typical month looks like, we'll give you each about 6 to 7 minutes to walk through what your daily lives are really like.
I can't wait to hear this.
I'm gonna defer to Matt on this one. Let's hear your typical week, Matt.
I appreciate that, Rachel. So how I got elected, it's pretty straightforward. It's Hugo Chavez and the Machines. No, all seriousness. How you get elected? It's just really simply been running a very positive campaign and knocking on as many doors and interacting with as many people as you can do in the time allotted as a candidate. It is a brute force. It is a marathon and a sprint at the same time. And really, it's who paints the most convincing picture for a positive vision of our community. At the end of the day, those are the folks that get elected. And it really, everything else is nuts and bolts. Everything else is tactical, but that's really the meat of it. What every candidate needs to know. So I'm just starting my 2nd year on council, but I can tell you that I'm only right now feeling like I'm hitting my stride. In the sense of process, and I'll just say process. That is probably the most important thing when you get elected, is to study the city process, learn it, observe it. The city process are the strings that allow you to effectively achieve the goals you have in this community. If you don't know the process, you will flounder and you will struggle, because so much of everything requires inertia and advanced planning. And if you're not working those things early and often, it comes to the 11th hour when it's time to vote, and none of that's been set up for success. So learning that process, understanding, and more importantly, having relationships with staff is critical, because they have the answers that you may struggle to find or may take you weeks to sort through, but they can help get you the answer you need to then find the person on the issue that you need to move forward. So build those relationships with staff, and most importantly, learn your own process. When do you study your packet? When do you then ask questions to the community? When do you do your outreach and community engagement? Right, our packets usually come out 2 weeks before the actual meeting, maybe 3. So how far out are you looking down the runway? Are you looking at the CEC agenda 2 months out? It's really, oh man, we're gonna have a conversation about use tables in a month. I might as well talk to some friends of mine or people I know that are involved in planning and development, so that I can get a better understanding of that. So when that issue comes, I'm more informed and I have a sense of the full wrap of the issue. So that's, I think, one of the most critical things is process. And really what I'd end with is giving Rachel a little bit of a chance here. Build relationships with your colleagues. You are no closer to your council colleagues than sometimes your partner. Because it is incredibly important to have those great relationships. I can tell you that there are some folks on council that I disagree with on some issues, but we have a sensational relationship. We talk multiple times a week, if not daily, and we can laugh, we can grab coffee. That is such a mechanism for a functional government, is building those relationships. Do not let a disagreement on an issue sour the potential of a relationship. The community will read right through it on the dais. They'll read right through it. And it's really important to have that relationship building with them, because at the end of the day, you will need that person you disagree with on an issue. And when you have that good relationship, you can just call them on a Sunday and say, hey, let's talk about this. If you don't have that relationship, you're gonna lose that issue, or you're not gonna have the 9-0 vote that is very clear. You'll be stuck on party lines more or less. So take the time to build those relationships. So those are the things I would really jump on in terms of what you need to know. See, are we doing all right? I want to give Rachel plenty of time. I got 3 minutes. All right. So one of the things I'd add is you're not going to change this city in one day. You won't. You'll campaign on all the change you're going to bring. We all do, right? But you won't do it in one day. And the main reason is there's mechanisms. The city's been built to sort of, I would say, retard the swings of the pendulum politically in this community. And that's probably a good thing, because we don't want to have the community flipped up on its head overnight. So what that says is, as Alicia mentioned, that we have this council retreat, within a few months of being elected. Your priorities are not going to go very far that first year. It's just the way it is. You're really finishing the previous council's work, and you're trying to find a way to adopt it, understand the why, and make sure that that's a success. The knee-jerk reaction is to say, well, now that I'm here, I need to review all the things and put my stamp on it. It's not how it works. What really works is finding a way to take what was done before you and maintain continuity so that the community can run and you build trust doing so. And in that case, it's really year 2 or year 3 of a term that you finally get to have your imprint be woven into the fabric of what the city is doing. So have patience. That first year is not for the first years, those that aren't incumbents, to change the world. They're there to learn the system and learn the process and become an effective legislator. And at that point, then you can really legislate, and then you can create that effective change. So have a little patience, know it's not gonna happen overnight, and just know that going in. I came in a little bit eager beaver, I'd be honest, was like, I'm trying to do this. But yeah, and then once you peel back the curtain of Oz, you realize there's realities. There's just a reality of governing that sets in. There's no amount of advice you'll get from myself, from Rachel, from any council member that prepares you for the reality of stepping behind the curtain. There's just a reality to that. But do your homework and have as many conversations with past council members, current ones, learn as much of those nuances as possible to set you up. Because the sooner you're an effective legislator, the sooner the people that voted for you feel validated for their vote, and making sure that those changes can come in. Plus, the frustration set factor goes away pretty quick when you feel good about making the changes in the community that you committed to making. Sorry, I'll leave that and turn it over to Rachel.
All right, Councilmember Friend.
Hey again, everyone. Okay, so I hadn't thought much about a typical day, so I just tried to write down what I remember doing for about the last 24 hours. So here goes on a typical day should you win this election, although Mark McIntyre and I sometimes talk about winning is losing and losing is winning. So, you don't know really which is the best way to come out in an election. Every day I read a lot of emails and respond to a fair number of them. Over the last 24 hours, I read the packet for this week. Packets can range from 30 pages for a light, steady session to sometimes, 500 to 1,000 pages. So there's a fair amount of reading in this job. I had phone calls with the city manager and city attorney. I think I spoke with 5 colleagues. You have to do that individually once you are elected, because there's like a no telephone game. So you can only talk to people one at a time. There was a lot of discussion about homelessness, which is the center of a discussion for us this week at a study session. I read the Chamber's PowerPoint presentation on homelessness from yesterday. I fielded calls from people who had attended that session. I think I chatted with 3 constituents who had concerns over various topics. I had 2 separate, about hour-long conversations with a couple of providers on affordable housing and issues around that. I would be, I think if I wasn't sick and I wasn't here, I would probably be attending an open house on the airport tonight, and options for what we might do with that long-term. And then tomorrow morning, I will meet with some staff and a former colleague about some transportation issues. So that's kind of a day in the life. And for a lot of people, you're squeezing that in around another job. So it is a pretty demanding and rigorous schedule, I think, to do this job well, which is the way most of us who run want to do it. You run because you're pretty passionate. So in terms of how to get elected and kind of how how to hit the ground running once you get elected. I sort of had a reading list that was recommended to me, and I'm sure most of you have already read all these things, but I will just read them through in case. So council's current work plan, which is up on our website, is something to kind of know inside and out. The current budget, which is lengthy, like 300 to 400 pages. I don't remember what this year's was. You need to read that. And Shay Castle, during her 2-hour discussion with you, will absolutely grill you on the budget. So you're do better than I did, I would say, in that interview is my recommendation. The Boulder Valley Comp Plan, which is maybe 100 pages. In any given year, there's some reports and community surveys that come out. If there are any that have come out in the last 1 to 2 years, I would say read those. City has dashboards on things like police reports and sort of crime data, as well as health and human services. So, be familiar with the city dashboards and information that we're putting out. And then I read all of the department master plans. So you will have like a fire master plan, an OSMP master plan, policing master plan. So, and they're each kind of lengthy, but at least skim them and know what the city is doing in each of its main departments. And then separately, you can call up I'm sorry, staff, you might want to plug your ears, but you can call up our department directors and say, hey, I'm running for council, can I meet with you? And they will say yes, usually. And you can just ask them, like, what do they think are the department's biggest challenges coming up in the next couple of years? What are their, what achievements are they most proud of? So the staff is really the lifeblood of the city, and we are on council just crafting policies that they then heavily influence and implement. So you will be working closely with the directors of departments, and they can give you a wealth of information as you're preparing to run. So I would encourage people, if you're serious about running, to reach out to departments, all of them if you have the time, but at least some key ones that line up with your top 3 to 5 priorities. And then also once you get in, this is a long game. And so you want to make sure you really want to do this job. You're going to be at it for 4 years. Some days you will want to quit, but you shouldn't. You sign a contract saying that you will perform this for 4 years if elected. So it's strenuous and often serious work. So if you're in it and you think you can run a good campaign, make sure that you're doing self-care and that you really want to kind of be in Matt's seat next to Matt next year. And also I would encourage that, starting now on the campaign trail, recognize that the council body needs to be collaborative. So even on the campaign trail, honestly, you're all kind of in this together. It is, it's sort of a boot camp experience. Like I said, it's intense, it's exhilarating, and it's something that you will just always have shared with the people that you're running with. And everybody running, whether or not you agree with them, everybody wants to make this city a better place. That's why Shay is able to say something nice about everyone, because nobody's running, to do bad things for the city. And you don't know if the people that you like on the campaign trail are going to win or not. So you should, just remember that you may be serving with those people for a number of years. And as an example, I ran with Adam Swetlick on opposite sides of the campaign trail, and we were always cordial to each other, but I wouldn't say we were like fond of each other. And we ended up voting together quite often on council, and he's a pretty good friend. So you just don't know how things are going to shake out, and getting elected is kind of the easy part, and serving is going to be hard enough, and you want to kind of be collegial with the people that you're going to serve with. Also, as Matt said, like, you get elected, you are kind of brimming with ideas and just like so eager and ready to go. When you get there, you need to take your time and read the charter and the work rules like 10 times so that you are following the process that Matt was talking about, because it is important. It is how things can run smoothly. Meet with everyone that you'll be serving with before you show up to your first meeting. So, if Matt is not someone who endorsed you, but you are elected, kind of from the opposite side of the aisle or whatever, Matt should call you, or you should call Matt and have a coffee and get to know each other a little bit before you start working. And that's true of everyone. You can also ask people like me or other people who previously, Adam Swetlick, who served, also again, cross aisle, like if they're willing to meet with you, just pick their brains. Like I got some very good advice from people who were outgoing and people across the aisle. Mary Young, for example, said, you know, while you're here, you're going to want to do things that stick. Like you might feel like you want to do things fast, but you want to do them well and in a way that, you know, the next council is not just going to run in and reverse. So I thought that was excellent advice from someone who I didn't know before I started running. The retreat that both Matt and Elisha talked about, and that produces the work plan, you want to be very selective and strategic in what you want to prioritize and lift up at the work retreat. Because that is going to be, that's the whole thing. That's your 2-year work plan. And that means what it says. Like that's all you're going to work on for 2 years. You cannot direct staff on the side. You can't get things done on the side. It's all comes to the work plan. So know that going in, like as eager as you are, like you're going to have to get 4 people to agree with you to prioritize something on the work plan, and not all your things are going to get prioritized, but some of them can. And that's another reason why I will just emphasize again, being collaborative with people. You're going to come out of the campaign with Nextdoor and Twitter having, you know, created villains basically out of all of us. And kind of your supporters are going to want you to hate the people on the other side, frankly. Like sometimes they get mad if you're, you know, I don't know, extend olive branches or whatever. And you can, you know, you could retreat to the corner, but you will be unlikely, I think, to get done much of what you care about and much of what you want to see happen to make the city a better place. So I would just really, again, encourage, drill down your work plan items and talk with everyone on both sides of the aisle ahead of the work plan, and you're going to have better success in making the change that you seek. And know that it's not going to happen on January 1st after you get elected in November. It's more likely the 2nd January or the 3rd, or some things I'm still working on and hopeful to get across the finish line. How am I doing on time, Jonathan?
You're over, but it was poetry, so I just let you keep going. So, you want to wrap up, and I'll hand it over to Matt.
The questions are really where it's at. So thanks everyone for listening, and I will stand down.
Really question, but what Rachel said something I think is kind of critical in today's day and age, which maybe wasn't the case 10 years ago, which is in every community, including ours, emotions are at a amplified and maybe a distilled form. And when you run for public office, you are putting yourself and your family in the public eye. And I think it's important before you run that you make sure that yourself and your family are comfortable with that and understand what may and sadly sometimes does happen as an elected official in this community, whether it be school board or for council, where you can have some unfortunate situations occur where, you know, strangers will just show up at your door demanding answers to issues. That has and continues to happen. I know, you know, our mayor has incidences with that. I've dealt with that, and Rachel has, and others. So these are things that happen. So you need to be prepared that when you're in the public eye, in this day and age, it sadly comes with baggage in that form. So know that, be comfortable with it. It doesn't make it any easier, but just make sure that you understand what putting yourself out there entails, and sadly what risks that is. And that is just the age we live in, unfortunately. But it's important to know it and come first with it. So sorry to end on that note, but it's an important one to know. So happy for Q&A.
You scared everyone away. Be ready for death threats. Who's got questions? Well, before we go to questions, this is just going to be my wrap up here. First of all, special thanks to Mayor Brockett for being here. Thank you for joining us as well. And along those lines, I want to say everyone that presented on our panel here, every day they're trying their best, right? We may not always be doing our best, but that doesn't mean we aren't trying to do the best thing we can. Shay put it incredibly well. We all make mistakes, we all learn, we all grow. And so city staff, I mean, this is one of the things that I learned very quickly. City staff works incredibly hard, tirelessly to get the information out there. You may agree or disagree with their direction, but the amount of effort, time, and diligence they put into it, same thing with our media and our colleagues in the media, and also same thing with our elected officials. You may agree or disagree, but the time and diligence they put in is by itself a reason to stay involved in this process. And those who don't put the time in usually don't last. So on that note, feel free to queue up again. join us at the microphone and let us know who you want to direct your question towards.
Hi, my name is Bill Cheller. I spent 6 years on the landmarks board, and I was stuck personally, even on that little board, so that's a good piece of advice. 2 questions for both Matt and Rachel. About how much time per month do you estimate you put into doing this job?
I'd say it's easily 30+ hours a week, so you're talking about 120 hours a month.
Rachel?
Yeah, I would say for me, it depends. Some weeks I'm lighter than that, but some weeks, like when I was doing I was a liaison on the CU South annexation, and I was probably doing 50-hour weeks for a couple months there. But I think those of us who
Very time consuming, you would say,
doing
right?
that-
It's a time consuming job.
Yeah.
Big job. Now, with that said, I know Lewis is gone, and I probably should have asked him this question. Can I run for 2 elected offices?
I can answer that.
Can I? Well, wait a minute, not just on the city, but like, let's say I wanted to run for, say, I'm a state congressman. And I was sitting on a current Boulder council, for instance.
Well, we have that now. with
We do.
Councilman Jones.
Yeah, and that's my question.
Right.
Is that legal? Can we have a person holding 2 elected? Here, we have good council people telling us how much money they, or how much time they have to spend to do their job, but we have a woman, a person, a council, sitting on the Boulder Council, who also sits on an elected state office seat.
I can answer.
Go
It
ahead,
is
Rachel.
legal to do that. You know, I personally require a fair number of hours of sleep every night, so I couldn't do it, but that doesn't mean that Junie can't do it. So I think, you know, just it probably depends on the person and how efficient they are and how much they can squeeze into a day, but it is legal.
It is legal, exactly.
Other questions? Feel free to come up with the microphone.
I just thought it was interesting hearing how many hours you guys work. How many of those meetings, those $234 meetings do you have in a month? 4. So that's $1,000 a month, is what you get paid, so 4, so 1,000, so what is your hour, have you thought about what your hourly rate is? What you actually pay?
Actually, don't think about your hourly rate.
I just think, well, it's actually an issue, but.
Yeah.
Well, what I can say is, we are, council is gonna be starting to work on, having some community outreach regarding fair pay for council. To try to, not only, the Fort Collins just passed this kind of with flying colors, and really it's an attempt to create some equity within the system, because it really takes someone who has a uniquely flexible job or is, independently wealthy to be able to really be on council. And if you have more, you know, if you don't have some of those prerequisites, it's incredibly hard, if not prohibitive, to be able to serve the community you love. And so by thinking about fair pay for council, it opens up the accessibility to serve your community, so everybody has a fair opportunity to make the choice to serve our community and not have to be driven by the economics of that decision, but by whether or not the electorate decides whether you share the same values and want to run. So that's something we're gonna be looking at. We may, you know, bring it to the ballot this year, maybe next year, but that's something we're gonna look at to really address that core issue. And so
I
yeah,
would add, not chump change. We are eligible for really good health benefits. Like I'm on the city council's health, or the city's health plan, and a rec center pass and an eco pass. So does it get us above minimum wage hourly? Probably not, but it is another benefit to being on council. But
I mean, it depends on the times you ride the bus. I mean,
And I just wanted to clarify, when I said no, I meant no, you can't run for 2 offices in the city of Boulder. You can only run for council or for mayor, unless you're a sitting council member. Sitting council members could run for mayor and be sitting, but you can't run for mayor and council member in the
You can
same.
hold 2 offices at the same time.
In the city of
Well, we go to
In the city.
even year.
But not all bets go off if you go outside the city and go into another entity like the state congress. Yes.
Or if you wanna run for governor in 2028, you can also run for election on council at the same time. For instance,
I mean, that's just counting.
I mean, but it's just theory. Matt, you just said, it has to go to ballot. Does it have to go to ballot, or can council vote and give themselves a raise?
I think democratically speaking, if we just gave ourselves some unlimited salary, I think many of you would recall us in a heartbeat. So yes, that would be something we would go to the voters for, to make sure that we work for you, so you get to determine how much we make.
I got that, but it's in the charter.
Yeah, it has to be
Yeah, so it
changed.
has to be started.
It has to be on the ballot? Okay, that's what I meant.
It's gone to a vote of the people before and was rejected.
15 years ago or something. It was a while back.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, fine, come on.
I have a question for city staff. Could you talk a bit about the relationship between official candidate committees and unofficial candidate communities? What are the boundaries between them? And I'm asking a bit so that other folks here, I've been on both sides of this, but I didn't hear too much about it tonight.
But we're here to help. Whatever we can do to clarify, to support you, to make sure you have a clear understanding what boundaries are there, that's what we're here for. We try to answer questions as quick as they come up. You know, John is the election official, the election administrator, so most questions come to him, and then I support him as city clerk because I have like 8 hats on, right? But we're here to help. So any question, we've had questions about signs, and people brought in their signs. They sent us proofs of any type of media or publication that they want to do to make sure it meets the qualifications. So whatever you need, we're here to help. Does that make sense? Or do you have specific things you're looking for?
Now, let me clarify the question a little bit. It's about what kinds of contact or lack of contact are allowed between candidate committees and UCCs.
Oh, this is the coordination question.
It's a coordination question, it's a finance question, and I think it's an important one.
I can take a crack.
No, I mean, I can take a
Go
crack.
for it, go for it.
But as separate, they're still separate committees. We want to make sure that that's clear. They're still separate committees. And you can, I can say support, especially if you're supporting the same candidate, you can. If you're supporting the same candidate or the same issue, of course you can collaborate, but you're still 2 separate entities and 2 separate committees. So that the money has to stay separate, the publications have to stay separate because you're representing on 2 different levels. Does that make sense? Because you're not supposed to combine things, especially if you've got matching funds, or I'm sorry, if you've got limits, because you have limits on what you can gain and how much money you can accept in and how much you can spend and that sort of thing. So we don't want to muddy those waters, right? So we want to keep everything separate and clean. But you can still collaborate.
I can add, because obviously. So from the city side, you know, Alicia is bringing a very good point in terms of just the tactical execution of those rules. Functionally speaking, having run an official candidate committee in 2019, we could not coordinate with the candidates. We could not do that. We could not coordinate on our messaging. We're not supposed to really have any interaction other than if I see them at an event. There's no calling at midnight on a Friday to say, when are you putting your ads out? Okay, to maximize impact, you put your ad out this day, I'll put it out this day. That's not allowed. You cannot coordinate the function and the efficacy of each of those campaigns between an official candidate committee and certainly those unofficial candidate committees that support those candidates. You really have to be completely separate. And I think it's really important that that's the case, and the city will sort of make sure that you're being honest with that. And so just to sort of clarify, it's a very clear division in that line, in that capacity. I will say that until those candidates are official, you know, as much coordination as you want, because they're not official in the eye of the city. So between now and when they're certified, you can talk with whomever you want, however you want, and come up with any kind of strategy you feel you want. But then once you're official, you gotta sever that connection and make sure you are not coordinating or touching base in that capacity. Rachel, did I hear you?
I was just gonna say that all, kicks in after you are certified and on the, certified with your 25 signatures. Before that, you can really sort of collaborate and coordinate in ways that are gonna be illegal the next day. So, use July and early August strategically.
So what I will add a difference is if you have a ballot committees can coordinate with one another. In that sense, because they're actually, because technically you're not about the same thing. and so there's not as much connection. So for instance, during COVID, there were a couple of our campaigns that actually coordinated with each other because we couldn't really be inside, so we had to coordinate signature gathering. We coordinated our volunteers. Hey, can you take our petition with you when you're going out? Sure, I'll take both petitions with me. That type of collaboration is totally fine. And so it's a little bit more of there's less restriction with regards to the ballot coordination than there is with the candidate side of things. So, but as I said earlier, ask permission, not forgiveness. If you are curious, do ask John and Alicia, and they will give you the yes or no, up, down, binary decision as to whether that's allowable or not. So that's what got me through the election. When in doubt, I reached out.
I called Diane Marshall, who was their predecessor, daily during the campaign, just to say, is this okay? Like there's no penalty. You can't overcall. She might have been annoyed with me. I don't know, but you're better safe than sorry, and do it in writing when in doubt too, because then you can point back to that. Like, I was told this was okay and therefore I did it. And so you're not going to get in trouble, because the whole thing is you don't want to get a campaign violation where, that just looks bad when it's, run in the paper, and also there can be financial penalties. So to be avoided.
Any other questions from the audience? I'll take one more question before we wrap up tonight.
I do have one more thing I want to say that
All right.
might be important.
All right, I'll do the last question then. What is the one more thing you'd like to say?
When the cycle begins, we do have a process where you have to come in and declare your candidacy, and you are allowed to bring people in to sign your petition at that time, because we do have a 3-step process where you come in, declare your candidacy, we print the petition, and some people call them signing parties, right? So right now, you can, once you decide to run and declare your candidacy, you can bring all 35 people with you at that time. We'll have the room set up, and you can have everybody sign at one time, and then your petition will be done, and your candidacy will be declared once we verify those signatures. So just keep in mind that we do set those up starting Tuesday, August the 8th. You will need to make an appointment. They're 30-minute appointments to come in and declare your candidacy, and then you hit the ground running. But you do have that option to bring all 35, 25, or 35 people with you that are verified registered voters and get your petition signed at that time.
When can people call and ask you for a time, Elisha? Because if you don't call early, you're getting like 8 a.m. on the last day, and it's better to get 4:30, and then you take your 35 people, out to a place that you've reserved and celebrate kicking off your campaign.
Well, since we have the start date of August 8th, thanks for that question, Rachel, it's appreciated. We start making those appointments in July.
All right, so petitions and Pinot Noir is what I'm hearing here from this, so that 4:30 time. All right, on that note, folks, I'm gonna invite our president and CEO, John Taylor, to come up briefly, just say, we are at time now, so I'm sure some of our speakers would be more than willing to stick around. And so, John, take it away.
Thank you, Jonathan. Not really much to say. I want to recognize all of you who are thinking about running for office. And we will have therapy sessions available for. No, just to be very clear, we at the Boulder Chamber do not take positions on candidates. Why? Because as it was articulated earlier, much of what is done in this community is done through collaboration, and the political parties, the differences change with every issue. So we want to be in a position ourselves to work with you as you get elected to public office. But what we do is applaud you for your interest in community service. And I know not all of you here are thinking about running for office, you're thinking about supporting people for public office. And that also is absolutely critical to the smooth running of our civic institutions and our political activities. So I thank all of you for your interest in this work. I thank our panelists here who are also great partners with us. Alicia and her team at the city clerk's office, we often call you to make sure we understand